Recently, I made a video about teleporting and praying in tongues, and basically how praying in tongues can help you get to the point of teleporting. And then one of you sent me an email and was asking if I have personal experiences. And of course, he wanted me to share those personal experiences. And so I felt like instead of just replying one email, I would rather just make a video and talk about some of the experiences I've had, as well as some of the testimonies that I have had, so that at least everyone can get to hear it. So that is what this video is about. That's what I want to talk about today. So I do hope I'll remember most of those experiences because there have been quite a number. Now, the very first time I had an experience of like an almost out of body experience was mostly in dreams. It has happened mostly in dreams. Now, in those early dreams, like of course, I would pray in tongues before I would go to bed. Like that was my routine. And I noticed that on some nights, immediately I would fall asleep. I would find myself walking. Basically, it was like a street, but it didn't look like an earthly street. It was a street, but it seemed to be a bit more heavenly than earthly. But there were still just people on that street, and it looked almost just like an earthly street. And then one thing that I clearly remember was that there was someone who was teaching me how to fly. And I later on came to understand that that was actually an angel who was teaching me how to fly. And it was very interesting. Those dreams were very, very fun. Like there was so much interesting to experience because this person will teach me to like jump up and to find balance, because usually I used to realize that immediately like I would jump up, and by jumping up I would jump higher than I would normally jump while here on earth, like the normal jump, because normally when you jump it's just a few feet off the ground. But that time when I was being taught to fly, I would jump and I would go high, almost several feet into the air. And I wouldn't fall back immediately. Like falling back, I would come back very slowly, falling back. And so what used to happen is that every time, like sometimes when I would jump up, I will start losing balance and I will start swaying from side to side. And sometimes I would even fall like on my back, more like what would happen if you were in a swimming pool and you try to jump up. You see, it's not easy to maintain that upright posture when you jump up in water. Somehow the water sways you around and you find yourself almost like losing balance. So that's what it used to feel during those very early days. And so I did that it happened quite for a number of months until it got to some point where I started getting the hold of it. So when I began getting the hold of it, I would jump up, but I will not land at the same place. So I would jump and land at some other place. Then I would jump again and land at some other place. So I would move around that way actually. And it was so much fun just to jump around and move around, because you'll just jump from one place to another, jump from one place to another. And then after that, it came now to a level whereby I would continually stay in the air. So I would only jump up once, and then I would just continually stay in the air. And if I wanted to move to any direction, I will just think of it. So the way you will just say, let me move to the left, and then all of a sudden I will start moving to the left. And then it happened that the the more the more I leaned on the side I wanted to move, the faster I actually moved towards that side. And so it had gotten to a point where I would move long distances within a very short period because of just thinking of what I want to, like where I want to go. And even like the speed, sometimes you'll just say, I want to move faster. Then all of a sudden, your speed will just increase moving towards that side. And of course, you're just completely floating in the air and you're just completely flying in the air. And so around that time, I also used to. There was a time in some previous video I mentioned about dreams where I used to go and do evangelisms. So actually, that's how I used to go and do those evangelisms, because I would just fly to some place. Then, of course, just from above, I would see probably someone. I remember one case; it was some kind of rural family, and then there was two brothers. There was one who was older, about probably in like about 14, 15 years old, and the other one was a little younger, like about 7 years. And I think I was flying over their home, then I saw them arguing. I guess I don't really remember what they were arguing about, but then I just felt in my heart there was some kind of hatred between them. And so I said, let me go and talk to them. So I actually went and talked to them. I actually just talked to the older one because it seemed like the older one was the one who was on the wrong. Then after that, I believe I prayed for them or something. But I did talk to them, and then afterwards I will just fly away. So it used to be so much fun, and it was an experience like no other. And so that has happened until recently. I've also still been having those same dreams. Sometimes I'll just fall asleep, and all of a sudden I'll start seeing myself like on top of some kind of building. And then if I want to move to any other place, I'll just jump off that building and I will not fall down straight. You see, like those dreams where people find themselves falling, it's usually because those people have not learned to fly in the spirit, or because God has not taught them to fly in the spirit. That's why you keep falling in your dreams. But that should not be happening. You should actually be like pray and get to that level whereby you can actually fly. Because what I usually experience is that sometimes I would find myself like on top of a building or on top of a mountain. And if I jump off, I don't fall down. I just float in the air. And so I just move around from one place to another as I like at will. So that happened until recently. So recently, I had another dream. And now this dream was a new level that I had not experienced before in terms of movement in the spirit. And this one, I was basically lying on my bed. Like this one began when I was lying in my bed. You know, those dreams whereby you can't tell whether it is a dream or not, because you are having a dream in the same exact place where you are. Because in this dream I was on my bed, like I was in my bed, like that is where it, like that dream began. And actually I was in my bed sleeping. So you see, it was very difficult to differentiate whether it was a dream or reality. And then it also like felt so real that I could not brush it off and say it was a dream. And so what happened was that I was lying on my bed looking upwards, and then I began praying. I was praying in tongues. Now, they were not very aggressive tongues. It was just normal tongues. Then shortly after I began praying, just like a few minutes into the prayer, I started feeling like I am losing weight. And at first I didn't know what was happening. But then shortly I started feeling like I'm getting close to the ceiling of the house. And that's when I realized that I'm actually floating in the air. And you see, because I found myself floating in the air, I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what was happening. So I tried to roll over so that I would get a good posture or at least stand upright, but I could not. All I knew was that I was just floating in that same like lying position facing upwards. And then I began like drifting to the side of the house. So basically, because the first time I had just like risen up directly above my bed, but then I started like drifting towards one side of my room. And now that one made me really, really concerned. because I was now trying to like regain control of the situation. And I will try to like roll around and try to turn and try to like wake myself up and try to like basically just panicking and trying to do whatever I could. And then I realized that it was pointless because no matter what I did, I just stayed floating. And so in that moment, I understood that it is because of the prayers that I have made that I was feeling that way. Basically, those prayers had made me so light that I was floating. So what I did, I stopped praying. So I stopped praying, and then like my body just began coming down slowly, 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 coming back to my bed, like falling back on my bed. And the interesting part was that immediately I fell back into my bed, I woke up immediately. So that even made me question even more whether it was really a dream or that was something that had actually happened. And I would say I wasn't really terrified. I would say I was more amazed than terrified. I was a little bit scared during the experience, but after the experience, I knew there was just some peace over me, and I knew it was something that had been orchestrated by God. So I wasn't really panicking because I know God can never do me any harm. And so it was just a very, very interesting experience and a new one for me in that matter. And so what I understood was that, like also coming from the past experiences, is that there are levels that you grow into in terms of like teleporting. You don't just wake up one day and start teleporting. You have to be taught these things one by one. So it began for me with very like being taught in dreams how to jump up and float in the air and all that and all that. Then it began to moving from one place to another in my dreams. And now it has gotten to a point where the motion or the like getting into the spirit feels more real than a dream. And I know that if it continues like this, it will eventually get to a point where I now get accustomed to just doing it at will. And yeah, I believe that will be the point of where like physically moving from one place to another will be possible. So in terms of what I do, maybe like to get these experiences, because you may be there, you also like pray in tongues and you say, why have I not experienced these kind of things? And for me, I'll say it begins with curiosity, because I'm a very curious person. And sometimes I would even pray and just ask God, how like what do I need to do if I want to teleport? So I would ask those kind of questions. And sometimes I would just pray that God may give me knowledge about teleporting and moving from one place to another. And you see that just curiosity about those heavenly things. So I realized that the more curious I was and the way I would pray in tongues more, then I would start experiencing these things. Because the way God works is that you have to desire these things for Him to give them to you. And yeah, I've experienced them and they are fun. Yeah, so I've also had a number of people, testimonies from a number of people. And you see, like mostly when they are having any spiritual experience, I would find that okay, like there is one whom I listened, there was a testimony, the person was giving a testimony, and the person was saying that one night he went to bed, he just went to bed, and the moment he closed his eyes, the next thing he found himself, he was in hell. And he was saying like it happened so fast, like he could not even tell how much this, like he could not tell how quick it was, because he would say like normally he would go to bed, and then of course you don't fall asleep immediately, you have your like eyes closed, and then you will have to wait some minutes before you actually fall asleep. But for him, he said that the moment he went into his bed and closed his eyes, basically as the darkness just fell on his eyes, immediately in that instant he found himself in hell. And the same thing has happened also with some people who have had um, like heavenly encounters. You see, basically the transition from having a heavenly encounter back to earth, sometimes it's very, very fast. It's just like an instant. So basically, it's just one instant you are in heaven, then another instant you are back here on earth. So that speed of motion, like that motion where you move very fast, of course it is a form of teleporting, and of course it is a very, very high level. So usually when someone is teleporting, the speed also actually matters, and the distance that someone covers. And so what now I was experiencing, I could cover some distance, but you see my speed was not very high. But when you see someone like now someone who is having that spiritual encounter, because heaven is above, like heaven is beyond the space that we know. You see the way this space, the one that NASA explores, like heaven is above this space. That's why even Christ, when he was going to heaven, he just rose up and he was covered by the clouds. So basically he had to go beyond the space that we know, even though for us actually space is what looks infinite, and it's actually infinite, but heaven is beyond that. So it is very, very far. Like heaven is extremely far. And that's why even the Bible, when God is saying that my thoughts are not your thoughts, he says what? As high as the heavens are above the earth. He actually uses that distance of between heaven and earth to like signify how great his thoughts are beyond our thoughts. And because the thoughts of God are way, way high, like high above our thoughts, it actually means that what? Like heaven is very, very, very far away, beyond what we can even imagine. Because for us, even just exploring space alone is just seems too difficult. So if you're having like a heavenly experience, you see you have to travel from the earth all the way past space to get to heaven. And you see all that distance, that like where in science they will talk of several billion light years, but basically for you, you are covering that in less than 1 second, or maybe like in just like 3 or 4 seconds, and then you are already in heaven. So that's just a very, very high level of teleporting and moving from one place to another. And you see that one is a level that you get to when you have really, really uh, like gotten so much accustomed to the spirit, and you are so used to it. And most of the times these things like they happen because it is God who just gives you the grace in that moment to experience that. But you see, you can also just grow by yourself to get to that point where you can actually just do the transition from earth to heaven and come back and go back and come back like that. So these are very real things. Sometimes when you talk about them, they may feel like a little science fiction, but it's not actually fiction. These things are absolutely real. And if you talk to anyone who has really had um, some serious experiences in the spirit, they will tell you that, yeah, these things are very, very real. Yeah, so those are some of the experiences I've had personally. I'm still on this journey. I'm still growing and learning some of these things. And of course, I'll keep sharing with you. So praying in tongues helps me a lot, because praying in understanding would make it very difficult for me to know what to pray for to get this kind of experiences. But you see, praying in tongues, I only have to have the desire in my heart. Then I'll just pray in tongues, and then the desire will just manifest. And I enjoy it. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And if you have not experienced it before, yeah, desire it, because it's a very, very awesome thing, and it's so much fun. Yeah, so that's it for today. God bless you.